music, and I wrote a couple of the pieces that you played this semester, Boardwalk Casey and the Clockmakers Workshop. And so basically what I do is like I kind of have a weird sort of situation where most people's jobs kind of are the same from day to day, from 9 to 5 or from 8 to 4, whatever it is. Then they do the similar sort of thing. But for me, it's kind of more a year-round situation. So in this particular instance, this is the time I would normally be on the road. And I had actually several states lined up for this school year, and I got to about half of them. But this year I was doing Illinois, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and then Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and then I skipped up over Virginia and then did New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Ohio, and someplace else. I can't remember. And I was actually one day before Wisconsin when this whole thing started, when I was starting to do schools there. So I do that during the spring. Then the summer comes. That's your downtime. It's also my downtime. So that's usually when I write most of the music that I haven't written already. And I take vacations, I chill out, I would do whatever, I get stuff ready for publication. And then during the fall, stuff generally gets printed, graphic designers, music shipped out, and that's kind of how that whole cycle works for me. And I'll be putting a link for you guys in the chat, I think, in a few minutes that you can look at later. I don't want to spend too much time talking about me right now, but if you have questions also, you can ask those. So I do want to get to the music, but before I do that, Mr. Dries, is there anything that you wanted to cover related to the introductory stuff or what we're doing here?
Nothing comes to the top of my mind. I did start recording this, so we can just go from here, and yeah, whatever you got to say will be great.
Excellent. Okay. Can you remind me what time we have until?
I think we technically have until 12, so like an hour.
Great.
If we go under or a little bit over, I'm sure that's fine. If people have to leave in an hour, people can leave, and we'll just keep this recording.
Okay, so let me figure out this chat thing real quick. Oh, there it is. All right. So I'm putting a link in the chat. If you want to know more about the specifics to me or what I'm doing, I kind of have like a mini video series. I don't do a lot on YouTube. It's kind of just like a side fun project. So it's a little channel, but that's just for those of you who are interested. Now, I would like to share my screen, and then I'll do a brief presentation. While I'm doing that, if you want to take out a piece of paper, or if you have a piece of paper or something with you, I recommend, for what I'm going to talk about, just having something small there. Not a lot of writing. It's going to be a lot of space. All right, so Mr. Dries, we didn't actually talk about this the other day when we did it, but is there a way that you can make it so that I can present my screen?
Yeah, I might have to assign you the host, so let me experiment with this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna make you the host, and then I think you'll have the capability.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what they did last time, but all right, let me see if it's going there. So there, okay, I think I got it. Okay, very cool. All right, guys, so what I would like you to do is I'm going to give you a short talk about a little bit what I do, how I got there, and maybe give you some information that could relate to you. But as we get started, if you happen to know what you want to do when you grow up, or you have things that you're interested in, I want you to write that on the front side of that sheet of paper right now. And I'll give you about 30 seconds to come up with it if you don't already know. Okay, so A popular question is, when did I start writing music? And I kind of started around, I'd say, fourth grade. It wasn't great music back then, but that's just when I got started for various reasons that were going on in my life. And so I went to middle school and I kept writing music, but I never saw it fully as something that I could do. And so when I got to high school, my high school band director allowed me to arrange our marching band show. And so I know you guys probably don't do marching band at your school, but you know what marching band is, marching around the field, playing pep tunes and all that sort of thing. And so he actually let me do that show. And it was during that time I learned about all of the transpositions and the ranges and all the aspects of putting together a score. But even after I finished that, I still really didn't understand how to become a composer. Because the reality of being a composer is that it's a very rare, unusual profession. The odds are most of us never meet a composer. If you ask someone, "What, do you know any composers?" Most people will probably say no, unless they are entrenched in the industry itself. I would imagine like 0.001% of people actually become professional composers. And you can't find specific numbers on that. But the reason why I come to that number, and I think I'm probably being generous there, is that when you think about it, probably 1% of people know even how to read music proficiently. And then of that 1% of people that know how to read music proficiently, like if you were to go into a mall, let's say of 1,000 people and say, who in here could write a woodwind quintet? Or who in here could write an orchestra piece? That number is probably, I think it's likely you could be there and have it be no one. So I bring that up to say that it's difficult to do. It's kind of like, it's not as bad as other professions like going to be in the NBA or something like that, but it's not easy. And so my real struggle was figuring out how that I can do this possible thing that I want to do that's so difficult. So this is me, and when I was your age, I was a little band geek. It's my instrument, and I graduated from high school knowing a lot more about music composition, but not quite understanding how to do it. So I got to college, and I was like, this is where I'll figure it out. And I got my bachelor's degree in music theory and composition, and I literally graduated, and I was like freaking out because I was like, now what do I do? I knew how to write music a lot better. I learned a lot from my professors, had an excellent experience in college, but still, what do? You're out. There's no one who just hires composers. You don't just go to some store and say, I want to be a composer, and then they have you fill out an application, and then you become a composer. It doesn't happen like that. So what did I do? I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree just to kill time while I figured it out. And it wasn't as simple as that because, that costs more money. But one of the professors, he liked my work and he liked me. So he actually ended up giving me a full ride to do that. So I was like, okay, this is a perfect time to go back and figure this out. So I graduated a second time, and that's my college picture. And I got out there and still no reason to think that I can do what I'm trying to do. But something did happen during the second time around that started to change things for me. Right before this graduation, one of my professors says, Darryl, I think I want to do a special project that I'd love for you to be a part of. And I said, okay. And he said, I want you to write original music for these 4 middle schools in the Los Angeles area. I'm from Southern California, if you don't know. And he picked out 4 middle schools in the Los Angeles area. And he said, I want you to write music for them. And then we're going to throw a concert and it's going to feature your music and we'll pay you. And I said, that's wonderful. We can do that. And he said, and one more thing. I want you to work with these middle schools during the school day and on your music. And I said, nope, that's a no-go. It's not going to happen. Not for me. And the reason why is because I'm a pretty introverted person. If I were with you, you might not pick it up because when I do these sorts of things, it's different. But I'm happy in my room, alone in the dark, writing music. That's what I do. And the idea of standing in front of a classroom of students was terrifying to me. So I said, sorry, I can't do it. And he said, yep. And I said, nope. And he said, yep. And 2 weeks later, I was on the freeway on the way to the first school, and I was terrified and I was freaking out. But something happened that was annoying at the time, but turned out to be a really good thing. I got caught in one of these LA traffic jams where I was going like 3 miles an hour, and I had a little time buffer, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, but it started to disappear pretty quickly. And I was realizing I'm going to miss this school, and it's going to be awful and embarrassing because everyone's waiting for me. And so it got worse and worse. And then towards the end of the school, when I started to get there, it got a little bit better and it let up. And then so I raced off the freeway. I parked and I was about 5 minutes late when I got to the school. And so I just jumped out. I ran to the school and ran directly to the classroom, which is a no-no. You always stop by the office. But this time I was just like, oh, I'll have to figure it out later. And I got in there. And the good thing about it was that I was so stressed out and frustrated and exacerbated by all the traffic. I forgot to be nervous. So I just went and did it, and it went fine. And then so I was like, okay. So then I did the other 3 schools, then the concert, graduated, great. So I had that experience, and now I'm like, well, what do I do? Now, the good thing is, at least at this point, I got a job transcribing music at a church down here. And so they hired me to basically make the sheet music for all of their services and stuff like that. But, that's what I was doing. I wasn't really writing music. And a little bit into it, I kind of started to get like depressed for no reason. I don't know why. And I was talking to my dad, and I remember him saying, you have to operate within your design, meaning you have to do what you were made to do. And for me, it really was writing music, and I'd stopped writing music. And the reason I stopped, because I didn't need to. I was making enough money at my job so that writing music was just something I didn't have to do. And so I was like, okay, so I'll get started writing music again. And I started working on a project, and I got that done. But then the problem that I had from middle school and through college, and when we got here, rose its head again. I'm writing music, but who's going to play it? How does it become a business? How do I make money? And that's when I realized something that I think is important to you, and I'm going to share with you, but it's mainly that you have to do, like my dad said, what you're made to do. And so I decided to go back to what my professor said, and I was like, okay, schools, this is the way. And I organized a tour of schools in the Seattle area of Washington, and I said, I'll try this again. And so I flew up to Washington, and I did about 10 or 11 schools there, and it was a success, worked well. It's like, okay, maybe this could work. And then I went down to Colorado, organized a tour there, did some more schools, then Arizona, and then the school year ended. And I was laying on my bed, and I was like, I think this is something that I could do. I want to write music, and teachers want opportunities for their students to learn about all the aspects of the profession. And so maybe we can do a win-win sort of situation. So the next year I did more states, and I did Idaho, Alaska, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Florida, Georgia, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. And by now I got to do over 42 or 3 states, and then Canada and Australia. And so the main thing that I want to tell you about that particular thing is that, well, actually, I'll hold off on that. Before we do that, let's do something a little fun, okay? I like to share this stuff because, it's fun. I'm going to share a few pictures of my travels here. So this is the Santa Claus house, and this is in Fairbanks, Alaska. And so they have this Santa Claus house where you can go and write to Santa, and they put it in this box, and you can buy Santa Claus memorabilia and Mrs. Claus memorabilia and all this sort of Christmas stuff. And the city's actually called North Pole, like North Pole Fire Station, North Pole Middle School, and it's the North Pole for some reason. And I like to go there. This is the Liberty Bell in Pennsylvania. It's not as big as it looks. It's like the size of maybe like 2 big tubas. And it goes on tours too. They take it around the country, and you wait up in the line, and then you go there and you get to look at it and all the other Ben Franklin time stuff. This is Charleston, South Carolina, where you can take a horse-drawn carriage ride through the historical district. South Carolina is one of the oldest states in the country, so they have a whole lot of history there. It's kind of cool to see. I got to go farming in Iowa for a day. So that's a tractor, and the band teacher I was working with lined up for me a chance to ride in a tractor with a real live farmer. So the tractors are a little different than you might expect because they're very, very modern. They have air conditioning, they have radio, they have bouncy, cushy seats, they have a little television if you want one. He had a little kind of monitor down there, and then they're automatic. So you can just sit there and they automatically trail through each place, and then they know when to turn and then come back the other way. And so he's really just there in case like some rogue deer gets in the way, I guess, or whatever. But you can just go in there. So it's pretty cool. Lake Erie in Pennsylvania. I can write music anywhere. I like to write music in different kind of places sometimes. And so I decided to stop on a weekend while I was on a road trip to a different state and work on a piece. And it was right on the lake, kind of nice. Cincinnati, Ohio, this little cloth house. Everything's made of cloth, the stairs, the walls, and they have all kinds of artsy sort of exhibits and stuff like that. One of my favorite state capitals, Indianapolis, Indiana. I love that place. Very stately. I like to go to state capitals. This one is the one from Providence, Rhode Island. And Niagara Falls in New York, that was February, not the month to go there, but at least you have the parking lot to yourself and there's no lines, but not the month to go there. That was very painful. This is Wilmington, Delaware, where you go to the DuPont factory. You can see how they used to make guns and chemicals and stuff like that. You guys know what this is about, right? Yeah, we know here. So this is the last time I was in Wisconsin, and I did a tour of the stadium. and got to see everything that happens there. This is Michigan Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, the Arches in Utah, and a Japanese garden in Portland, Oregon, where they have all of these kind of exotic trees and bushes and plants from all over the world, and Mount Rushmore, South Dakota, and Washington, D.C., and this is one of my all-time favorites, Annapolis, Maryland. And so this is their state capital. And right here, they have the place where this is a George Washington statue, and they put it right where he was standing when he resigned the presidency at the end of 1799. And they have the places where Thomas Jefferson was sitting, and Ben Franklin, and all of John Adams, all the people were sitting there. And they're describing the passion of the moment, having been the first president. And to stand where George Washington literally stood, like there's this real sense of gravity and power and amazement, and is one of the most meaningful moments that I've got to have on the road. The Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, the Space Needle in Seattle, Washington. And before we get to the important stuff, we have to do one more detour. My favorite part about traveling, outside of the music of the students, the food. So these are the duck fat French fries in Portland, Maine. So it's French fries with cheese curds, and it's duck fat poutine. So it's cheese curds and gravy and I don't know, duck, actual duck, pieces of duck. So that's kind of like a special little health treat that I like to do. My second health treat is these things they have all over Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. So on the bottom, you can't see it, but there's pasta, and then it's layered on top with chili, and then they sprinkle a dash of cheese on top of that. And so that's there, you know, I think that's 75 calories, and I ate a couple of those while I was there. And these are the lobster rolls in Annapolis, Maryland. So there's like this really buttery, crispy toast, and then big chunky lobsters or crabs. And this place, it's just like sushi. You have to leave hungry or broke. So yes, I did spend $45 eating like 30 lobster rolls, and I had all the different flavors they had. Really cool. Barbecue in Gilbert, Arizona. Voodoo Donuts in Portland, Oregon. So they have all these gourmet, you know, novelty donuts, and you wait in line. I think the line was like 2 hours, one of those kind of things where you go there, and it was annoying, but you're supposed to do it. One in Portland, whatever. Crawfish cornbread in Louisiana. And so it's this rich, cakey, gooey cornbread with big chunks of crawfish. Now, this is actually when I was with you guys in Milwaukee. It is steak tartare. And so I was talking about this with Mr. Dries actually the other day. It's raw ground beef with raw bone marrow with raw egg on toast, and it sounds suspicious but tastes amazing. When I was down in Mississippi and Alabama, got to do it, fried shrimp on fried fish on French fries. That is a very heavy, you kind of like you eat it and it's good for a few, and then you feel like disgusting, like the most disgusting person in the United States of America after you eat that, but you got to do it at least once. And then there is cheesy grits in Alexandria, Virginia. So these are cheesy grits with chorizo, jalapeno, poached egg, and cilantro. And it's truly one of the best things that I've gotten to have. So those are the little adventures. Now we'll get down to the real business. So this is a picture of a Boy Scout meeting Barack Obama. And I show this to you because I talked about these things that I've gotten to do and the struggle to become a composer and what I had to go through. And what I want you to notice about this picture is this kid is, I don't know, young, 8, 9, and he's meeting the President of the United States. And he's looking him in the eye, and he's shaking his hand firmly. So the reality is most people in a situation like this would be terrified to meet the president. We have this natural sense. We don't ever want to be embarrassed. We don't want to make a mistake. When something is very big happening around us, we just have this tendency to shrink back. And I asked you to write that thing on your piece of paper, whatever it turned out to be that it was. And I want to emphasize that regardless of what you want to do in life, it's going to involve you being uncomfortable. It's going to involve you looking stupid at some point. And I don't want you to make the mistake that I was about to make, and many people make, which is to let that fear of failure, that fear of being uncomfortable keep you from doing something that you really want to do. Don't let fear stop you, because nothing significant that you want to do, nothing at all that has any value or meaning is going to be done without you having to put uncomfortable way. And if I had prevailed and insisted to my teacher that I was not going to go to those schools, if I told him, nope, I'm not doing it, we'll do the concert, I'm not doing the schools, I'm almost certain that I wouldn't be here with you today, and I wouldn't have gotten to see all the things that we just talked about and do all of those different things. Because before then or since then, I haven't had any opportunities to do anything that would lead into that profession. Sometimes you only get one chance. Sometimes you do. And maybe another chance would have come eventually. I don't know. I haven't seen it since then or then, but maybe you only get that one chance. And I want to encourage you, if you are a shy person, if you are a reserved person, if you're a person who's afraid to maybe talk to people or do uncomfortable things, put that aside and become a person who's not afraid to go up and say hi to someone that may interest you, to sit in the front seat of class when you go to college, to raise your hand and ask a question when you're in a place when there's all kinds of people watching and you don't know what they're going to think of your question, to do the things that you want to do and have the courage to do it. Because again, if you miss that one chance, who knows? And I'm so glad that my professor stayed on me. And so as you have that sheet of paper there, you can turn it over now, and I want to talk to you about 3 things that I've learned about my career and from other people's careers that made it possible for me to do what I want to do, and that will most likely make it possible for you to do whatever it is that you would like to do. The first one is find a mentor. So you guys are lucky because you're near enough to a large city, and a mentor is important because whatever it is that you're trying to do, there's always several ways to get there. Understanding the best way to get there is something that someone who's already walked that path can show you how to do. Find a mentor. Ask him if you can work for him over the summer as a summer job. Ask him if one day during the week you can go shadow him or her and see what they do all day. Ask him if you can email them periodically throughout the year and that they'd be willing to stay in touch with you. Stay in touch with them through college, because once you graduate, they will be the ones to show you how to get where you're trying to go. They will be the ones who know things that you don't know about how to do what you're trying to do. In my particular case, never in a million years would I have come up with touring high schools and middle schools. I never would have come up with that. My mentor, that professor, is the one who showed me the pathway to do what I got to do. Find that mentor, find 2 or 3 if you can, be in touch with them. And if you're in touch with them from now through the end of college or through the end of trade school or whatever you do, you can be guaranteed that if they don't give you a job, they'll know someone who they can vouch for and they'd give you a job. So second thing, research. Always be on YouTube, always be on Amazon buying books, online reading articles about whatever it is that you're interested in. The research that you can do now will make the difference when you get to college and beyond. You want to know a lot about what you're trying to do before you get to college. When I got to college, I already knew how to write music, to set up a score, transpose or arrange, to compose. And the fact is that there are thousands of people doing whatever it is that you wrote on that sheet of paper. You wrote something there, thousands, tens of thousands, depending how many, could be worse than that. And so separating yourself from that massive load of thousands of people is going to be a difficult thing. But having a mentor and doing your research, hitting college with the, what's the expression, with the wheels running or whatever, it's kind of what you want to do, because everyone else is going to hit college just starting. If you can already know what you're doing, professors will recognize that. Opportunities will be given to you because you'll be seen as a person who's serious and has skill and knows what they're doing. And really, it kind of expands like this. Like if you go into college mediocre and you're identified as mediocre, who's going to necessarily spend that much time on you? But if you go into college as being a talented person, you know, that cycle keeps getting bigger and bigger because opportunities come to you, more people ask you to do stuff, more opportunities. And so you want to be the person that continues to get that. So that's that second thing. And the third thing is to make a plan. So your books and research and your mentor will help you make a path to where you're trying to go. And it's never going to be going on monster.com or jobs.com and just filling out an application with another 20,000 people. There's a way to get there that's smart and effective. Your mentor will help you do that. So I wanted to share those few steps with you while I had you, because I felt like it was important. And this is really kind of how I came in to do what I do. So the next thing we can do is go over Clockmaker. Let's do that. Where's Clockmaker? There it is. So maybe you've heard this. Let's see. And Mr. Dries, I'm going to ask you when I play this. Can you hear it okay? We'll start it from the top. Nice performance, guys. I enjoyed listening to it. Oh. Okay, so starting so far, I want to highlight that this is a difficult piece to do this with, obviously, because it's so interdependent and you can't rely on necessarily a solid groove. And so kudos to you guys for taking the time to do it. And I know in many cases, you probably had to do several takes. And so I noticed, like, for instance, looking at percussion, Ephraim and Taylor, I thought that you guys really played off of each other very well. The interlocking things that you're doing worked out. I love the glass of water. It was actually a very effective little triangle substitute. I had to look like, where's that coming from? I was like, well, that works pretty well. And then also, I think, was it Taylor with the that speaker grid thing where you read the stars naked? I was like, whoa, that actually is a convincing sort of ratchety kind of sound. It works out, or not a ratchety, the gyro. And so I was like, that's going to go well. And also John too. All you guys, good job on the counting. I like what's happening there. We'll one thing there. So, okay. Miranda is beautiful work, very nice and flowing. That's kind of the mood we're going for. And I would like for, so, and I kind of feel like this is a normal thing actually. So the brass, you guys did a very good job on the outer stuff. And then we got to the middle and you're generally doing well, but I would have liked for you to have that rich, flowy kind of sound through that middle, outlining a clear delineation between the outer sections and the middle sections. The outer sections are going to be bouncy, light, staccato-y, kind of like spry. Those middle sections, whatever we can do to keep that sound long and flowing. So Jesper, Connor, Peter, the trumpet lines there, very nice, very nice. And we're getting there on that, but I would have liked for you to breathe out and have that be more legato. So when you guys were doing the outer part, you three trumpet players, those lines, very good timing and kind of spunky how I like it. That's just how I think the middle section would make a bit of sense there. That works well. Susie, if you're here, that, nice rich sound right there works well to propel us forward after, Miranda, she's doing the high stuff with with the other players, flute player, Anna, very good part there. Then you hand it over and that works really well, Susie. So that's what the comment on that. Also, beautiful sound, Anna. Love that flute. Blends in well. So that part is one of the trickiest parts, and you guys actually did very well with it playing in separate rooms. And so that handoff there is so excellent, the way you did it, starting with the high instruments, going there. And where we always lose it is in the trombone, but Jackie killed it. Like that, came in confidently. It's very smooth and flowing. Love that. So kudos to the string players overall for playing in this key. It's obviously not a string key, but you guys are doing well. Guitars, Samir, Peter, Isaac. So one thing that you've taken time with that I think was really good is that you muted when you needed to mute during those sections, and then let it ring when it needed to ring. And so the reason for that is we have the boom, da, ba, da, 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 da. So, we have those little long sections there. And so when you guys are hitting it and then cutting off, muting, whatever, works very well to keep that short. But then knowing when to ring out, thank you for doing well on that. And also for some of those quick key changes heading into the slow section, or chord changes, you guys did a pretty good job nailing them because they're not all normal chords. And so going from the diminished to the major minor, good work on that. That works well too. And I forgot to mention earlier during those sections, both Sophia and Susie, wonderful job on that. On the high parts though, the reinforcement, and so it's mainly coming from the keyboard stuff that you're doing, Isaiah, works very good there to keep that so that when we're doing those boom, 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 this is written for obviously an ensemble that has more instruments, but you guys have it all covered. But having that reinforcement there on time works well. Isaiah, one thing though, just make sure, stay right there on the rhythm. You're hesitating a slight bit there. And I understand that because you're not playing with anyone around you and you just want to make sure you're in the right place. But staying on right on time is going to make the big difference there. Right. So that was nice. Toward the end, I mentioned that I like the aggressive cello work. In fact, I wish everyone would have taken that lead. So we have a couple places right before the end of the slow section. Bum, 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 bum. When we have those accents, we want to make them heavy. Now, I've kind of done this before. I know you kind of, there's probably a sensitivity about being alone in your room playing forte accents, and you're just kind of like, and so I get that part of it. But in that sort of section, we want it to be heavy and big, and so we get there at the end, bum, 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 bum. And so that's kind of what we need. William Joe, kudos on that. And so everyone, if you play this song again, keep the lead on that. Make sure that those accents are there. So this piece is obviously about a clockmaker's workshop, and the intention of it is just to give someone the image of the clockmaker there with his tools and his hammers and all the sort of things that are going on. And what you'd imagine happening while a clockmaker is doing his workshop like that. Now, I want to show you a little bit about how these pieces are written and how they come to you. Mr. Dries, we have 22 minutes, is that correct? Okay, so I just don't want to get carried away, have too much fun here, and then run you guys over. So I'm opening the software called Logic X. This is where I start all of my music. And a lot of people say, how do you write for all of these instruments? When you're doing the beginning of a piece, you shouldn't, at least especially when you're beginning, start with a full ensemble. And so what you want to do is begin with something small. So when I'm writing a piece, and we'll use Boardwalk Casey for this since we did Clockmaker just now, these 5 staffs are similar to what I do in all of my works. Just 5 things. You don't want to start with a full score, just like for English class. Like if your English teacher asks you to write an essay, what you don't want to do is just start with a blank sheet of paper. That's why she always wants you to do an outline. Because if you have just a blank sheet of paper and you're doing an essay on dogs, you're just going to start saying, dogs are animals, and I like dogs. We have dogs at my house, and we play, and the dogs are pretty special. And you do that because you don't know what to say or what to do. But once you have an outline, you kind of have an idea of what you're going for. Maybe the first paragraph is going to be about types of dogs. The second paragraph is going to be about caring for dogs. The third paragraph will be about dogs through history. And then when you have that settled, it's kind of easier to get going. So in here is And so when people say, how do you write for all those instruments? This is really the reality of most things that you play. There's only 3 or 4 things happening at once, maybe 5 things. That's all. So if you have 20 musicians, if you have 5 musicians, if you have 100 musicians, there's generally only 3, 4, or 5 main things happening. So this outline is a way to just get those 3, 4, or 5 things out so you don't get distracted by how high can the flute play, how low can the saxophone play, how loud can the French horn play, do enough people have this melody, blah, blah, all those kind of things slow down the creative flow. You don't want the slow followed by what's the transposition here, is this instrument in B5? You don't want all that stuff. You just want to get the ideas out. And then once you get something like this, it sounds kind of small right now, but when everyone's playing, it has a full sound and it extrapolates out likewise. And so I'll play a little bit more and then okay, so I do that all the way through. The second thing that you want to notice is these letters at the bottom. So our guitar friends know what's happening here. But for those of you who aren't rhythm section, these are chords. And the reason why these are all written down there is because when you start writing music, the mistake that you make, this mistake that I make all the time, is you just write one line, and then you write another line under it, then you write another line under it, and then you play it, and it sounds like, and you don't know why. And so it's because you don't keep track of your harmony. Like, we all have a natural sense of rhythm. We can all do rhythms that work. We all have a natural sense of melody. We can all make melodies. The harmony is the thing that we're not born with how to do exactly. So learning your chords. So particularly in this case, for instance, we have D. The D major chord has D, F sharp, and A. So pretty much everything that we're doing needs to have those 3 notes in there. And if you do, it'll sound cohesive. So this low note, D, F sharp, A, E. All right, so then we change to E minor 7 right here. And then the notes of that are E, G, B, and D. And so you just go all the way through deciding what chords you want to use. It takes a lot of time. It is monotonous, but once you have your foundation down, everything really falls into place a lot more easily because you know if you have, say, an A major chord and you have an A and a C sharp, you know that you only need an E and then it's a full chord. Or you don't even need to E, you can use A or C sharp, but you at least know that what is this line going to do? Well, I don't know, but we'll start with A, C sharp, and E. It keeps it all together very well. So after I finish that, it goes into another logic file that is for the entire ensemble. And so if you look here, you'll see now we have our flutes, our oboes, our bassoons, our clarinets, saxophones, French horns, trumpets, trombone, all the instruments are right there. And so that thing we just looked at is now a full score. Yeah. All right. And so after I do the sketch, it is up there. This is all the orchestrating, and this is when I do all of the smoothing out, the editing, figuring out how all the lines are going to be, putting in all the accents, the staccatos, the slurs, all that sort of stuff. And then I take it on the road with me to schools like you guys around the country, and I test it. There's always something you didn't think of, some mistake you made, something that's awkward on an instrument. A lot of times the students will help me understand what's kind of difficult for them at that age or what I can do to make it better. Then during the summer, like the time that's coming up is the time I edit kind of all these kind of works, and I fix things, make errors, update stuff. Then I work with a graphic designer. He does the score cover, the booklet, the design, and then I work with the printer, prints, shrink wraps, the web guys, put it online, and then it's a full process after that. So that was the, actually I don't have, I just got this now. This is the recording that I'm going to use for it. And all of that becomes the final product. And so that's the general process I wanted to share with you because I wanted you to understand that a bit. Now, at this point, I want you to have time to ask questions. So if you have questions, Mr. Dry said you can put them in the chat, or if you want to turn on your microphone, that's fine either way. But if you have questions about me, about the music, about music composition, about publication process, whatever you want to talk about, I'd love to discuss whatever that is. Does anyone have any particular questions?
How long does it normally take to compose one song?
Okay, so I would say it takes roughly 80 to 100 hours if you're talking about beginning to end. Like if I just wanted to write a song and just have something on a music stand, you know, like if someone came and said, we desperately need a song tomorrow. I mean, I could do something. I mean, you know, it wouldn't be something I'd like to do, but from the whole process of getting it from my mind to that sketch, to the full orchestration, to the designing, to all of that, it's about that much time. And so it also depends a little bit on the piece because wind band pieces are a lot more time intensive than orchestra pieces because when you're doing just orchestra, you have violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass. So those 5 staffs I started off with are pretty much done right there. Violin 1, violin 2, viola, cello, bass. When you go to wind band, it could be piccolo, flute 1, flute 2, oboe 1, oboe 2, bassoon 1, bassoon 2, clarinet 1, clarinet 2, clarinet 3, bass clarinet, alto sax 1, alto sax 2, tenor sax, bass sax, trumpet 1, trumpet 2, trumpet 3, horn 1, horn 2, trumpet 1, trumpet 2, trumpet 3, euphonium, tuba, percussion 1, percussion 2, percussion 3, percussion 4, percussion 5, percussion 6, timpani. So that takes a lot of time for each one of those. And I have to edit each one of those. Every time something's wrong, all of those parts have to be corrected. And it takes a lot more. And then when you're doing orchestra, then you add those violin 1, violin 2, flute, viola, cello, bass on top of all of those instruments. And so it's kind of a messy thing there. M. Dobbs says, what composers are your favorite? Which inspire you the most? And the answer to that would be, I like film composers a lot. They're usually inspirational to me. Oddly enough, pop music artists are very cool. I like to use ideas from pop music because I feel like it keeps music fresh. So when you listen to my stuff, you won't necessarily say, oh, this sounds like Lady Gaga, or this sounds like Beyonce, or this sounds like Justin Bieber. You wouldn't say that listening to it, but I often take ideas from their music just to keep it modern in the ears of the listener. So me as a millennial, or you guys are Generation Z, will hear it as something more native to you. So I like pop artists. And then as far as the traditional composers, I like Tchaikovsky and Dvorak. Susie, how's it going, Susie? How do you deal with writer's block? So actually, it's kind of similar to what I just said, where I listen to other people's music and then I borrow it. So like if I have writer's block, which I don't have too much trouble with writer's block, but if I do, I'll often look at someone else's score, listen to someone else's music and say, oh, how can I do this in a different kind of way? How can I change this to a band sort of situation? You know, once you look at other people's stuff, usually they'll give you ideas for forms, give you ideas for different chord progressions to use, different kinds of melodies. Oh, look, a drum break. Oh, look, a woodwind break. Or I like the way the percussion is trading off of the brass there, you know, and that can be enough to just get stuff started. Hello, Peter. Peter asks, what is the inspiration for Boardwalk Casey? Okay, so, no shade to Samir, Peter, or Isaac, but this Boardwalk Casey, this has nothing to do with you guys specifically, but it kind of has to do like when you get to college, there's a certain kind of guitarist. And this guitarist walks around like with a guitar case on, and he doesn't actually know how to play the guitar though. He only knows like 3 chords. And so he kind of walks around chilling, and then he like always likes to lay out his guitar and open it up in the middle of the quad so he can play and think that girls are going to come down. Oh, that guy plays guitar. And so he's just kind of like, you know, this cool rad guy. He would never like go to Starbucks because he would only drink at some place that had fair trade coffee that was grown by locals, and he'd be the person who's like against the man, you know, just kind of. And so, but what I like about Boardwalk Casey is that he's positive, he's optimistic. It's a chill day, good day. So if you imagine walking through a boardwalk, say Madison Park or something like that, or Milwaukee probably has them too, and you know, just like having a great day, sunny birds out, everyone's walking around. You're Boardwalk Casey. It's a good day. And so it's not like a negative thing about Boardwalk. I think Boardwalk Casey is awesome, but that's just kind of the inspiration that I had when I was writing it. Anyone else?
How often, or I guess, do you like composing things with less like traditional instrumental things like pizzicato, or like, I don't know about wind instruments, but like there are different techniques that you can do with string instruments that sound really
So it's
interesting.
actually, interesting that I'm doing a commission for this school, and the big thing is they want weird sounds, like they want to blow through their instrument, go, and they want to. So I don't do a lot of that for two reasons. One, like when I was a band student, I would always be annoyed when a composer required us to yell, or hey, or to sing, or I was just like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for, and then the rest of that stuff, find a choir or find a sound engineer. But so I don't love doing it. And then also it requires a lot of extra research if you don't play that instrument to figure out how exactly you're going to make that work. So I'll be doing it this summer, the short answer is, but no, I don't do a lot of it. And when I write for string stuff, I usually use a string consultant because, as you saw in my picture, I was a brass player. And so it's a different sort of thing. You know, we blow, we tongue, we slur. It's not that complicated. But for you guys, you know, you have your up bow, you have your down bow, you have your spizzicato, you have your martelé, you have your lure, you have your turning over the bow, hitting it with a stick, you have your pizzicato, you have your left-handed pizzicato, you have your combination stroking and pizzicato, you have your double stops, you have your triple stops. So all of that sort of stuff, that can get kind of over the top. So I use a consultant, and I don't do too much of it. But wish me luck now for this next project, because I'm going to do a lot of it, I hope. T. Lewin says, how many pieces do you think you made so far in your career? So I have about 25 wind band pieces that I use, about 7 or 8 orchestra pieces, and 5 or 6 jazz pieces. So maybe 50, 60, something like that. Any other questions?
So what specifically like made you make Clockmaker's Workshop besides like capturing the sounds in a workshop?
So one of the aspects of being a composer is marketing, and it controls a lot of what we do. So you guys are not band teachers, but if you were a band teacher, you would notice that there's a lot of frustrations that you run into. One, you know, sometimes a composer will write something that does really well, so the publisher will make them keep writing that piece over and over again. And then people are like, everything you write sounds like, but you know, you don't necessarily want to do that, but that's what's bringing in the money. That's one thing. A second thing is you need to have work at all grade levels. Grade levels not meaning grade, first grade, second grade, high school. Grade levels meaning grades of music. So in music, we have grade 1, which is your beginning band piece, the first things you play in year 1. Grade 2, it's an average middle school piece. Grade 3 is an average high school piece. Grade 4 is an advanced high school piece or early college piece. Grade 5 is a college piece, and grade 6 is professional level. And so I needed something at those levels. And at that time, I didn't have anything in this grade category for clockmakers. So in order to keep my catalog fleshed out, you have to continue writing in all of the grades so that people will have something to buy. Good question. EJ says, what would you say personally is your best piece? Can't do that one. Whoa, that's a popular question. I'm always excited about the one I'm doing, the newest, but my best piece, yeah, it's pretty much what it is. I always feel like the new one is the best one, kind of, but I love them all in different ways. I will say that each piece reminds me of what I was doing at that time in my life and what was happening, and they all have kind of sentimental reasons like that, but none of them I would say is the best. Susie Dobbs says, what is the most challenging piece you've written? And that would be Waltz in Chaconne. That's a high school piece, a grade 4, as I mentioned, and it's also my least performant piece because of that. So things that make it a little difficult is the first movement isn't 6/8, not so bad, but it dips in the D flat a little bit, and there's a lot of interlocking things. But the second movement is the real kicker, where it's in G flat. So those of you strings, you're going to love this. It's B flat, E flat, D flat, A flat, G flat, and C flat. And so every time I go there, there's a sea of students mad dogging me when I get there. So that's my most difficult one. Susie, what is the most, oh, that was that. Isaiah, what's your favorite section of Boardwalk KC? I think I like the part towards the end where it's partly swung and partly straight. And so you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, bop, bop, ba, bop, 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 bop. You know what? We can do it real quick. That's no problem. And I like it because it's swung and clingy the whole way through, but then you get to this hard hit where stuff starts to get straight, but it's kind of still swungy, but it's kind of still straight. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I like it. Peter asks, do you have pieces that never made it or just never released? Wow, that's a great question that no one has ever asked. Yes. So first of all, I have a folder on my computer called the Junkyard. And so sometimes I try to do stuff, it just doesn't work. Like I hit my head against the wall. After a while, you just realize this piece is not going to be a thing. So I put it in the Junkyard folder. And the reason why I keep it there is because sometimes 10 years later, I'll come back and be like, I know what I need to do. And then boom, it's there. Like that happened with a piece that I started in 2006 and it's been in the Junkyard folder. And then in 2018, it just made sense. And Boardwalk Casey actually was there for a lot of years before I kind of made it work for what I wanted to do. And so that's where that sort of thing goes. Now, there's some that make it all the way to the end and they just like, you just kind of want to pull it away. Like it's not going to happen, you know, just like fetch. It's not a thing. So, you know, that does happen and it's awkward, but whatever. Jack, was trombone your first instrument? And is it your favorite instrument? So my first instrument was piano because my cousin was taking piano lessons. And after 3 weeks, she was like, this sucks. So she gave me her piano book and I started to learn to do that. And that's what I started writing music on. When I got to middle school, I wanted to continue with music. So I joined the band and my band director said, what do you play? And I said, piano. And he said, no, pick a wind instrument. And so you guys get to play whatever it is that you play. And Mr. Dries lets you be you. He lets your colors shine. He lets you, but not in my band. No, you had to play one instrument. So I picked trombone because that's what my next door neighbor played and I didn't know what else. And so is it my favorite? No, I have a space for it obviously in my heart, but I love all the instruments. I see them all as a seasoning. Sometimes you want salt, sometimes you want pepper, sometimes you want sugar, sometimes you want cinnamon. Whatever you're looking for at that moment is what works for me. And I love all the instruments. And Dobbs, have you ever worked with youth orchestras outside of schools? No, I have not. I think I've only worked with schools, I think. Yeah. John, is most of what you do orchestral or do you enjoy experimenting with less common non-acoustic instruments? So that's kind of back to the marketing discussion. Those kind of pieces, less non-acoustic, less common, no one's going to buy it or maybe 3 people will buy it. And so you have to be willing to just love it if you're going to do that. And that's okay. That's a fine reason to do it. But if you're writing for band, orchestra, band or choir really, is for schools, your best bet because they're the ones buying the most new music. And orchestra, you can do okay, but still they're stuck with Beethoven and Mozart all day. That's all they want to do. And so it's difficult to get new music into them. So band and orchestra as a marketing thing, band and choir as a marketing thing are probably your best bets if you want to make it in that way. And Dobbs, follow up, do you compose any pieces that are just for yourself? I sure do. I have many of those pieces. I would say many of them are in the junkyard, but I do have a few of them that I've just written for fun. And, you know, you kind of do that, but there's a lot to do before you just do fun stuff. So I don't do a whole lot of that. Most of the things I write are for the intention of at some point being released. Anyone else? How are you? Well, thank you, Peter. You know, times are tough. The COVID virus is very frustrating. You wouldn't know this because you've never seen me, but I have like my protest beard. This is my coronavirus protest beard. So I haven't shaved since March when my first things got canceled, and I will not shave until they open up this state and stop being frustrating. So overall, it's okay. You know, it's not. What are you gonna do? Could be worse, but. How are you, Peter? Are you okay? Are you getting your cereal in and Fortnite and whatever you guys do over there? I'm glad. Glad you're doing good. So it's 10, or 11, 12 for you guys, right? 12. I'm not in a hurry, but if you do have questions before, I know this may probably kick us off eventually, depending on the plan you have. So do you prefer certain scales? No. Well, I mean, major, minor. You can do some Indian raga scale, but you can only do that once, or else everything will sound the same to a Western listener. So basically, major, minor is what you mostly have to do. Any other scales, other than modes, sometimes they kind of have to be used sparingly because you can hear major, minor songs as being different, but all kind of unusual things. If you do a bunch of that, then everyone's going to say it sounds the same because. Your last moments to get it in. If you have any questions, opinion on 20th century composers like Shostakovich? I'm not a big 20th century guy. I think most of the stuff that they do should be effects more so than whole pieces. Like if you're going to have a tone row, which is that sound where you have sort of like bing, 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 all that sort of stuff. I think that's really interesting for 30 seconds, but not 8 minutes. Or minimalism. You made me know what minimalism is. I love minimalism in life, but a lot of times composers will, in the minimalist period, they'll just have 2 minutes of bum 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 bum. They'll do that 30 seconds, and then later they'll add dum bum, and they'll do that for 20 seconds. So stuff like that. I just think they were all experimental, and they brought music forward, but generally I think that our ears want to hear something tonal and normal and reasonable, and the other stuff is more just for effects. Peter asks, have I written a rock piece? That's one of those ones, if I were going to go back to what M. Dobbs says, I did it for myself and my friends, but nothing that I, publish or anything like that. Agree to disagree, but okay. That is fine. M. Dobbs. Oh, gosh. Hating on me. Okay. Why do you disagree? So you sing M. Dobbs. You're really Susie, though, right?
No, there's Miranda and Susie are twins.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So Miranda disagrees. And so the next time I make it to Dominican, hopefully after all this is over, I'll make sure that you have a piece that is just plucking for 9 minutes.
If you listen to Shostakovich, he's really good. It's really, really good. Like if you listen to any of his like string quartets and just the history behind it too, like that was during like communism and everything. It's really good. Okay.
Miranda,
You're emo.
who asked?
She likes the communism, oppression, and people starving to death in Russia.
No, just because of the like emotions that he expresses through it. It's not just like plucky stuff. It's like very visceral and like angry, and it's really interesting.
No, you're right with Shostakovich. I guess I was more thinking of the people like Schoenberg, and once you started to get well into the 1900s.
Yeah. Okay, I'll agree with that part.
Yeah, like Shostakovich is still kind of coming out of the Romantic, so he's a little bit much for me, but I could deal with that. I'm okay. Like I don't mind it, but once you get a few years beyond him, then I'm kind of like, so. Isaiah likes minimalism. Good deal, Isaiah. That's a great thing for piano. You can do that alone. You can play those kind of things and just keep it going. And
I think a couple of years ago, a couple of the students performed the piece In C by Terry Riley, which is one of the I guess most well-known minimalist pieces.
Into this, so was it like overly minimal, or did things change enough for it to keep interesting?
So it's each player kind of has control over when they go into the next section. So that you kind of repeat each section as many times as you want, but you still have to kind of listen out to everybody else to make sure that you're within a couple of sections of everyone.
How long did it last?
We made sure that it was an abridged version. So our performance, I think, was somewhere between 5 to 8 minutes. but normally performances of it are like 40 minutes.
Yeah, no go. That's a no. You know, I wonder how teacher would feel if I did send them 420 and said I'll be over to work with you guys. For you guys, if you don't know, 420 is, well, maybe Melinda, do you know? No, it's okay. I didn't know if someone knew. 420 is basically 4 minutes and 20 seconds of silence. And I'm sorry, I meant Miranda. I was asking Miranda if she happened to know what that was. But it's 4 minutes and 20 seconds of silence, and they got away with that. Susie knows it. Okay, yeah, some people know it's like a little cult thing. But literally, a guy wrote a piece called 420, and the guy sits at a piano and does nothing for 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and it's art. It's beautiful. Anybody else?
No, I think that will probably wrap it up. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing this, Darryl. This was this went really well. I hope that all the students enjoyed gleaning all this knowledge from you and your career, and it was definitely entertaining to listen to for me. And yeah, just everybody, if you could thank Darryl for doing this.
Thank you.
It was great to meet
Thank
you
you.
guys. And if some of you are freshmen or sophomore,
Thank
maybe I'll get to see you in the future. I hope to be back around at some point. So sorry, seniors, I won't see you, but I'm glad I got to see you here. It's better than not missing you totally, because I know that was a possibility that I wouldn't get to see you at all. And I know you've been working on the music, so I'm glad that I did get to meet you. You're welcome, all you guys. Thank you so much as well for being a fun group to present to.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy the rest of your day. Eat some cheese.
You too.